以下為個人意見節目，內容提及嘅所有政綱及言論均以嘉賓原話為準，敬請留意。
市選論英雄 Municipal Election Talks 節目主持 Adam Keung。
大家好，多謝大家收聽我哋嘅市選論英雄啊！咁今日嘅市選論英雄呢，有我姜永慶啦，同埋呢一位嘉賓呢，係算係重量級嘅嘉賓嚟嘅噃，因為係一個當選緊嘅市議員啊吓，就我哋而家係一個 Markham 改咗少少嗰啲區域啊，咁佢以前係 Ward 2嘅 Councillor 嚟嘅，咁而家呢就變成 Ward 1嘅，咁所以呢，我哋今日呢好高興係有Mr. Howard Shaw。佢係做緊我哋嘅 councillor 嘅喺 Markham， 咁啊今日上嚟同大家傾下偈，等我哋更加認識Howard Shaw 嘅。Hi Howard,
thank you for having
welcome,
me.
and thank you for coming and joining us. And this afternoon we are very happy to have a more heavyweighted incumbent Markham councillor.
The only heavyweight I think is around my stomach. We're all equal as councillors.
Yeah, so especially this Markham and our office is in in Richmond Hill, but a lot of our ordinance in the past 20 years of this radio have a lot of people living in Markham, and especially in Ward 1 too. Used to be Ward 2. But then, so people living in this ward should pay more attention. Just listen carefully of who you have voted before and who is running again. So tell us a little bit more about the new boundary so that I can explain to our people.
Well, we went through a change of the boundaries, a review, a consultation process about a year and a half ago. It's not something that I support. I don't think that it's good for the residents of Thornhill. Over the last 15 years, Thornhill has gone from 3 councillors down to 2 and down to 1 now. And putting personalities aside, that's not good for the community because they have less of a voice at the council table. In terms of boundaries, the boundaries now run from Yonge Street in the west over to Highway 404 in the east, Steeles Avenue to the south, and more or less Highway 7 to the north. From Yonge Street, it goes along Highway 7, and then it dips down to the 407 over to the 404.
Mm-hmm. 所以而家佢其實Mr. Shaw 咧，佢呢個區咧就不嬲叫做 Ward 2嘅，咁其實係 Thornhill 嘅。Thornhill 咧曾經以前係3個 councillor， 而家嘅2個，而家變成1個嘅。咁一路改啦，同埋因為一個市嘅人數唔同啦，咁佢嘅 boundary 咧就係話由 Yonge Street 咧就一路向東咧去到404。向西咧係第7街啦，即係 Highway 7啦，而向南咧就係去到 Steeles 嘅。咁所以咧其實有好多聽眾咧係住喺呢一區咧，咁大家真係要留意啦。So within this boundary, we have a lot of landmarks in here. We have a lot of shops and even Chinese malls and so on in there, right?
We've got everything. Certainly Yonge Street is one of the busiest commercial corridors in the province, quite frankly. Yeah. It's a major source that's been identified for development, the Yonge Street corridor. That's going to be something that really has to be managed intelligently and properly by the councillor, because otherwise that's going to have a very negative impact on the local residents that have lived in the community for years. But certainly along Steeles, you have a mix between residential and some commercial. The Shops on Steeles, for example, is a wonderful plaza that's used by people in Markham as well as from North York to the south. You've got the 404 as our eastern boundary. And then along Highway 7, you've got just about everything, because that's another big area that's been identified by York Region and by the city as a major area of intensification. You've got the widening of Highway 7 right now and all of the construction that's taken place. I know it's frustrating to people. It is to me, too. 4 years ago when I became a councillor, I think the first day I drove the straight route to council up Bayview and along Highway 7. It took me 45 minutes, and I was cursing all the way. And now I take side streets. But once the construction is complete and the Thornhill portion is done, then that certainly will be much easier to travel from a car point of view, and certainly the bus rapid transit middle lane, and some wonderful shops on both the Richmond Hill side. Of course, I think they're better on the Markham side on the south, but we've got a wonderful mix of community from business, commercial, retail, and residential community that's springing up along Highway 7.
I'm sure we'll come back to the Highway 7 project.
Absolutely.
咁頭先介紹咗啦，喺呢一個區度咧，其實好多精彩嘅嘢嘅，亦都好多華人嘅嘢啦。就 Young Street 啦，就因為係一條好繁忙嘅街咧，由 Steele 到 Seven 咧係好多店鋪，咁有好多新嘅 development 應該點樣去規劃嗰個地方咧？咁啊 Steele 咧又係一個即係因為下邊就已經係 GTA 嚟嘅。咁所以亦都係好繁忙，404嘅更加唔使講啦，即係好多繁忙嘅出入口of 嗰條 highway 啦。Highway 7咧就更多食肆啊，由 Young 街去到404咁計咧，中式嘅食肆啊、餐館啊，亦都係好多嘅。咁所以咧，關注呢一區 Thornhill 嘅。Ward 1咧係一個即係非常重要嘅區域咧，咁我哋多啲留意一下啦。咁啊 Howard 咧其實係上任咧已經做咗4年嘅，咁我哋想探討下即係點解佢要再選啦，同埋佢過往呢4年咧有啲咩做過嘅。咁就 Since you are incumbent for the last term 4 years, so shall we start talking and asking you what have you been doing for this ward or in terms of the York region in general?
Well, sure. But, before we get there, I just want to go back 1 second because you asked a little bit about what's within the boundaries of the ward. And it occurs to me that the way to everybody's heart is always through their stomach. And one of the things that we've got, and Thornhill really is a microcosm of Markham because we've got such a wonderfully diverse, maybe I'm saying it because I'm getting hungry now, but we've got wonderful restaurants that really are a reflection of so many diverse communities. If you want to experience Korean food, Thornhill has it. If you want to experience Italian food, wonderful Italian restaurants. There's a growing Persian community in Thornhill, wonderful restaurants in the Persian community. So it's I'm getting hungry just thinking of it, but that's also a way to look at how a community is expanding. You're now asking about what we've done in the last 4 years.
Yeah, let me explain what you have just said about the food and hungry and the cultural things. It's a very good point and bringing up to a lot of questions we will ask you about cultural issues in our region. 頭先Howard 就講啦，其實呢一區咧好多唔同嘅食肆嘅嚇，就特別多食肆添啊，真係。咁就睇個食肆咧，就亦都睇到嗰個多元文化嘅 feature 喺度，又有韓國嘅食品啊，又有波斯嘅食品啊，又有中國嘅食品啊，咁啊好多嘅，咁所以係呢一區咧喺個多元文化嗰度咧，我哋會繼續問佢嘅問題嘅。Okay, so let's get back to so what have you been doing and I love this place in Markham or Richmond Hill even is a wonderful, well managed, well run council and city and regions. So so you have done a lot for us. Is that the right thing to say or?
Well, it is a beautiful place. I've been a Thornhill resident for 22 years now.
Okay.
And when I think about how much Markham and Thornhill have changed, it's really quite amazing and a credit to, I think, to mostly the people who make up the community. Markham is a fast-growing municipality. Of course, just 2 years ago we became a city. The 16th largest municipality in Canada. We're growing at a rate of about 8,000 people per year, and to our projections to the year 2031, we're going to go from 310,000 people today to about 420,000 people by the year 2031. When I think of the things that have happened over the last 4 years, I have to look at diaries because it's really been so much. This is the type of job, quite frankly, that there's something different and something changing virtually every day. But there's a couple of really big things, I think, for the benefit of the Thornhill residents. I guess I look at the different things that a counselor is involved in at both the citywide level and then the micro level, what happens locally in a community in Thornhill. In Thornhill, 4 years ago, during one of the things that I stepped into right off the bat was a major development application called the Shops on Steeles. Many of the listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with the plaza at Don Mills and Steeles. And this is something that, in particular by seniors, is used during cold and bad weather to walk the mall and get some exercise. And there were major plans that had been underway to redevelop the mall into a very, very high density, 8 towers over 25 stories. The community had been fighting that for a number of years. And after the election, I walked in and the mayor put me on a negotiating committee. We dealt with that issue. We successfully dealt with that issue, and there was a negotiated settlement between the local area ratepayers and the developer. We created our first off-leash dog park in Markham, was in Thornhill, and I'm very proud of that. That was something that within about 6 months of coming into office, just off of Huntington Park, for people that are familiar in the Green Lane and Leslie area, beautiful, beautiful park with soccer pitches, with playground equipment for children. A number of people had approached me and said, we need to create an area to let our dogs run free and get some good exercise. And very quickly we created the Huntington Park off-leash dog area. It's the size of a soccer pitch. We've got a smaller area inside for smaller dogs. We've got some benches for the owners to sit and relax while their dogs are playing. And we're now looking at getting some agility equipment in for the dogs to actually have something to do. I'm very proud that we've done that. A big issue that's gone on for 9 years now, but really just come to fruition in the last month. And for any of the listeners that in particular live just off of Bayview, either to the east or to the west, 9 years ago, people might recall that we had in August of 2005 some major floods that happened. Mm-hmm. This went through York Region, through Markham into Toronto. But an area along Bayview, east and west, was hit particularly hard. August 2005. Homes had inches, in some cases a couple of feet worth of water that went in. It's because Thornhill's infrastructure, the size of the pipes, the stormwater pipes that keep houses from flooding, is some of the oldest in Markham. In fact, it probably is the oldest. Well, it's been a 9-year-long process, much too long as far as I'm concerned, but we finally started the process of upgrading the stormwater system. It's not sexy to talk about stormwaters. It's one of those things, though, that's absolutely essential because it's protecting your house from flooding. It's, if you're like me, if your listeners are like me, in your basement, you've got some possessions that it's not like replacing a piece of equipment like a furnace or a water tank. It's old pictures. It's personal possessions that you value, and then when they get soaked by water, they're for the large part garbage. Well, this is something that I'm very proud because it's an expensive project. It's a much needed project. The Thornhill portion alone is going to be a $40 million project. Now, the question was, for the past number of years, who's going to pay for that? And it was a question of whether it was going to be a tax just on Thornhill residents or spread out across all of Markham. I'm very proud to say that residents across all of Markham agreed that it should be, as a policy, an investment decision of the city of Markham, not just a tax on Thornhill residents. And the difference for a Thornhill resident, if a listener today is from Thornhill, the difference is $330 a year for each of the next 30 years versus $48. And I was able to I had a motion passed through council to get federal gas tax money, $10 million of federal gas tax money applied to this project that secures funding at least for the next 5 years, $2 million a year. There's going to be an additional that $48 on people's water bill, but that's a heck of a lot better than $330 a year for each of the next 30 years.
This is for the Thornhill.
This is for the Thornhill portion of upgrading the storm system.
Yeah.
There's other work that's going to need to be done in other parts of Markham, But the thing that I'm very proud of Markham residents as a whole, when we went through the debate, nobody said, there were some councillors, but nobody in the community said, nobody from Milliken and nobody from Unionville said, oh, this should just be a tax on Thornhill residents. People agreed, just like roads, just like other types of infrastructure, that if we're going to replace the pipes in Thornhill, that shouldn't just be a tax on Thornhill residents. That would be like punishing people twice. They got hurt by the storm 9 years ago. They lost their possessions. In some cases, people weren't able to get to have their insurance cover it, or if they did, not be able to renew their insurance to cover flood issues. Now to hit them again with a $330 essentially tax every single year, it would have been called a local improvement charge. That's a tax. So I'm proud that residents across Markham recognize that, like other infrastructure things, upgrading the storm system in Thornhill, the hardest area hit 9 years ago, should be an investment citywide as a policy. The other thing
But just want to jump into that
Sure.
one as a clarification. Like, would other region not be upset about why would they have to pay for Thornhill?
Well, just like Thornhill residents. I mean, I'm glad that you asked that, because it really goes into a completely other area that we could talk about, how you fund certain structures, buildings, community centers. So when Cornell, just the far east end of Markham, just had a wonderful, beautiful new community center built, and for anybody that hasn't seen it, I invite you to go out to 9th Line and Highway 7. It's a beautiful community center. It's attached to Markham Stouffville Hospital. There's a library in it. The ceilings are exceptionally high, making it seem even bigger than it is. It's beautiful. But Thornhill residents paid for that in part too. So we've looked as a city, when roads are repaired in the east end of Markham, Thornhill residents pay too. So the argument that I made is that we should be looking at upgrading the pipes, the old pipes in Thornhill, as an infrastructure investment, just like we would if there was a water main break, just like we would if there was a road paving issue. When road paving is done every spring and summer in Thornhill or in Milliken or Unionville, that's a capital charge across that the city of Markham invests in, not just that local neighborhood. So I'm really happy that it got through council as a policy to be an investment across the city. Because the other part of this is that if somebody were moving into Markham today, and they chose to move to Cornell, I hope they choose to move to Thornhill, but if they did move to Cornell, they'd be getting as standard pipes that protected them to the worst storm possible in 100 years. That's how the pipes are measured. The size is measured in the theoretically worst storm you could have in 2 years, 5 years, or 100 years. The biggest pipe, 100 years. That's standard if you move into the new parts of Markham today. But why should you be penalized if you live in an older part of the city and the city hasn't taken care over the past couple of decades to upgrade the pipes? And lo and behold, 2005, because the pipes were small, homes flooded.
Let me explain this. This is the benefit of having an incumbent councillor, because now we have a very detailed account of a particular incident that I like to explain to our people here. 即係嗱，而家有好處咧，因為 Howard Shaw 咧係一路係 Thornhill 嘅 councillor 咧，咁佢講到有啲好具體嘅事情俾我哋聽嘅，有啲我哋唔知。This is something we don't know as detailed as you just said. So this is a very good thing I need to explain.
Sure.
Yeah. 咁就所以嗱，除咗我講快啲，因為佢最尾嗰個 project 係幾有趣嘅嗰個詳細性。第一咧，佢做咗呢4年啦，嗰個 Shops on Stilts 咧係一個好大嘅 project 啦，因為嗰度係起咗一個好靚嘅喺 Stilts 同埋Don Mills 嗰個 project 咧，咁好多爭議嘅，咁但係即係佢上場之後咧，就嗰個係起咗出嚟嘅。咁啊，另外咧有一個係即係dog 嘅 park， 即係狗嘅公園咧，可以即係帶啲狗啊，同埋嗰個係一個好靚嘅 park， 亦都喺一個 Thornhill 佢哋個區域入邊嘅。 咁另外咧，佢就再講咗一件事咧，比較都幾詳細、幾特別下嘅，就我哋都唔係太了解，就係話，如果大家記得咧，喺2005年嘅時間呢，就好多大雨啊、水啊，係喺 Bayview 嗰條街啦，即係亦喺 Thornhill 嗰度，咁就係嗰啲渠咧、渠務咧就要整過，因為嗰度啲渠咧就好舊嘅，咁一整咧其實要成4000萬嘅，咁佢就經過 Howard 嘅爭取啦，咁攞到一啲撥款啦，攞到1000萬啦，咁同埋成個 assessment 咧，本來咧係要300幾蚊嘅，咁但係而家咧就要減到譬如48蚊咁樣嘅。咁呢個資料咧係好準確，係嚟詳細嘅。咁同埋咧，佢就覺得成件事咧就話係唔係淨係 Thornhill 嘅人係承擔嗰個費用。咁呢個喺 Thornhill 嘅選民咧就會中意佢啦，我相信。咁但係我又問佢，咁其他嗰啲區咪喺 Markham 都要分嘅原來。咁啊唔好啦，唔公平，會唔會唔開心咧？咁但係佢個答案咧，我都滿意嘅，就係話如果喺新啲嘅區喺 Cornell 嗰度起咧，咁其實佢起嗰啲嘢咧，其實成個 Markham 都有啲嘢係要大家有份嘅。咁就譬如 Cornell 嗰條喉咧，就可以用100年，因為佢新嘅。咁但係咧，咁所以佢調轉頭，佢嗰啲人咧亦都有份分翻喺Bayview、Thornhill 嘅一啲重建、一啲重整嘅 infrastructure 咧，亦都係好應該，咁變咗係一個成個城市嘅一個規劃同埋一個進步、一個維修咧。咁呢個咧佢係都做咗好多嘢嘅。This is very interesting and very detailed for our people. A lot of us don't realize the benefit of upgrading and don't realize that we actually have to pay for something like this.
You know, I said before that it's not a sexy item. There are lots of things when you build a community center. That's I don't want to say that's exciting. Mm-hmm. When you even when you built we opened a new bridge on Birchmount. That's exciting. This is dirty underground stuff. It's pipes, but it's important because it's when we have heavy rains, and we had heavy rains a year and a half ago, August 2013. Over a 3-week period, we had 2 major storms that there was again a little bit of flooding that took place. And to somebody whose home is flooded, there's no such thing as a little bit. Flooding is flooding, and this is an absolutely essential thing to protecting people's homes. You know, I could go on about that, but there are other important issues in the city that I'm happy to tell you about. One of the things that I'm really excited is I chair the city's Information Technology Commission, and we're making some really big strides in moving towards what we call now a smart city, or we're naming it Smart Markham. And Markham, I know the mayor's very proud to say, is Canada's high-tech capital. But even that now is a little bit passé, being just high-tech. That used to mean you had some computers around. Being a smart city, something that's coming out of the committee that I chair, is talking about connectivity in a very different way. How we look at smart lights that are more efficient, that are better for the environment, that tell us through a dashboard when there's a burnt out light versus having to hear a complaint from somebody. Smart commute, how we find better ways of moving people around in their cars and public transit to save time and money. So Smart Markham, what it means to be a smart city, is just underway right now. It's one of the things that I very excitedly want to continue chairing and leading over the next 4 years. We're starting a conversation with our residents about what it means to them, what type of apps on their smartphone that they want to be able to report a pothole or to report any type of problem or register their children for a program. Other things that are going on in the city, and if people live in the Bayview and Green Lane area, I've been chairing for 3 years now something called the Thornley Revitalization Plan. It's looking at what the best land uses are over the next, not just year, but the next 15 years, 20 years. It's an area that started off very industrial, a lot of auto body shops. We want to protect those. Existing businesses that are in that area right now need to be protected. Usually they're small mom and pop husband and wife operations, and their livelihood is incredibly important to them and to me, and we've got to protect that. But as years go by, what do we do as a government to help facilitate change in the area? Higher environmental standards, moving in a direction economically that's more in line with the city's economic strategic direction. those are a couple of the things that are important to me. Working with our youth. I'm the council liaison to the mayor's youth council. And there are just some fabulous kids that are really, I know everybody says it, but youth leaders, the leaders of tomorrow. One of the co-chairs of the youth council, somebody that now I call a friend, Loretta Chan. And Loretta came to me a year ago and said, I'm not sure that council really takes us seriously. And I said to her, what would you like to see done? She said, I'd like to see Markham have a tobacco-free bylaw. I said, Loretta, you do the research. I will bring it forward as a motion on your behalf. And you know what? This young lady, who is just an absolute ball of energy and a real leader, not just of the Mayor's Youth Council, but of youth and people in Markham today, actually produced some research, and we're carrying that forward and try and make Markham a tobacco-free zone. That's the youth that lead Markham today.
I will do the translation really fast. We have 2 minutes, but on my question list, I have 2 very important questions. You have to answer me quickly. And for the record, casino, yes or no?
I voted twice against it. I think it's a dead issue. It should remain a dead issue. I don't want Markham being known as a casino city.
Good. And another pass maybe not pass, the arena.
Well, right now the arena is as dead as could be. If somebody comes along, I think the idea of an arena in Markham is a good one. The deal that was on the table turned out to be one that I couldn't support. The idea, great.
Okay.
Deal has to be good too.
So thank you very much, Howard Shore, and we wish you good luck in your re-election. And we're very happy to have you, and we hope that you can come again and talk to us more about what you have been doing and what you will be doing for us. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure being here, Adam. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
以上內容純屬個人言論，所提及嘅政綱均以嘉賓原話為準，並不代表本台立場，敬請留意。立場敬請留意。立場敬請留意。立場敬。